Hi there, Stephanie. Welcome to the Autism Little Learners podcast. I'm so excited to have you. Can you tell me about yourself and about your organization, Lily's Voice?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to chat with you today. As you mentioned, my name is Stephanie. I am the proud mother of an 11-year-old named Lily. She is autistic. She is non speaking. She has apraxia, and she is my favorite human on the planet. She's just so cool. We started testing Lily when she was like 8 months old for different things, just because we could tell that there were some things that she needed help with, and she was diagnosed with autism at 14 months old. So we have been on this journey for quite a while. And
Yeah.
throughout it all, communication has always been our number one focus. As I mentioned, she is non-speaking. She did not have a regression. She never had words. She barely had babbles or anything like that. So we were very much focused on communication early on, working on everything we could. We tried sign language. That was not a fit for her due to motor planning. We tried picture cards. We tried PECs, which I was not a fan of even 10 years ago, and said, nope, let's try something else. And then when she was around 2.5, I heard about something called an AAC device. And at the time, I didn't have like a speech therapist who was pushing us towards this. They didn't tell us anything about it. My husband and I just heard about it. We started researching. There were no parents online sharing like there is today, which I absolutely love. There was no AAC community. The people who made AAC devices weren't even sharing that much about them. But I decided that if this could help my kid, I was just going to buy one, which I know is a very privileged thing to do, but I did it. I bought an iPad case. My husband helped me choose an app by doing the limited research we could do back then, because there wasn't even like YouTube videos walking you through stuff. There was really nothing.
That's
But
crazy. And that's 10 years ago, right?
yes, uh-huh. And so
Wow.
it was we kind of took a shot in the dark without any example, and we bought Proloquo to go based on research. My husband actually was the one who really had like a gut feeling about it. And so then I set it up. I did a horrible job, just for the record. I did all the things that we would tell people never to do, but I did them because I didn't know any better. I didn't have an example. And then I started teaching Lily how to use this device. And she did amazing. She caught on really quickly. And then I caught on really quickly that I probably had some issues with how I set this thing up. And I started, going back to square one, relearning, resetting it up. And then I started kind of diving all in on it. So I became obsessed with AAC. I tried to find classes when I could and took classes. I reached out to speech therapists who actually seemed like they knew what they were doing and tried to talk to them. And then as the online community started growing, I started working with more people and taking more classes. And then I started working with parents who also mentioned they were trying to get an AAC device or had an AAC device and they were clueless. So I started helping them. And then I started making YouTube videos and doing calls and then going into schools and doing training and training SLPs because many don't get any training on AAC. And I just kind of became this person in the world of AAC. And it was all because of how life changing it was for my daughter. And so I've just been a fierce advocate even before we had AAC advocacy, doing my best to try to help, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then about 3 years ago, I was helping a mom friend that I met on Instagram raise some money to get an AAC device because not everyone can get one, which is a crime. Everyone who needs assistance with communication should have access immediately, not
I
wait, not
agree.
jump through hoops, right? It's ridiculous. It's a basic human right. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I was helping a mom raise some money to get one. I was super excited. And one of the people that I hit up to help pitch in was my cousin Amy, who
Mm,
she lives in Idaho, awesome person, business owner. And when I mentioned to her what I was doing, she was first flabbergasted. She was like, "What do you mean you bought Lily's device yourself? Like, I always just thought that was something they gave to kids. And how on earth could someone not have access to this? Because, she's known Lily since she was born. She's seen how well she does with it." And so she kind of became like enraged at the idea that people wouldn't have access, as many of us already are. And she said, let's do a nonprofit. Let's figure out how to do this. Let's figure out how to help people. And so Lily's Voice was born. that is where it came to be, was just my awesome cousin saying, Let's make a difference." And so we dove in.
Okay, so I think a lot of my listeners right now can probably clearly see why I'm having you as a guest on the podcast. If I was in charge of grad school, I would give you an honorary SLP license certificate,
Oh, thank you.
because you broke ground in that area. And I think all big changes come through like a grassroots effort from parents, especially in the field of autism.
I agree.
So
Thank you.
I think what you did is amazing. And I was like, okay, we need to connect, we need to meet. And so I'm so glad you're here. And Lily's so lucky to have an advocate like you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think I'm lucky to have her because I
Yeah.
wouldn't be me without her. I wouldn't know anything and I wouldn't be helping anyone, not at least this way, if it wasn't for her. So,
Yeah, and what a beautiful thing to come out of your struggle in finding and obtaining an AAC device to pay
yes,
it forward to others. And
that's that's the goal.
yes, yeah, and one of the things we'll talk about, like, in just a minute is the training that you provide to people. That's such an important piece. But first, I want to talk about Lily and how have you seen her communication skills grow using AAC through the years?
Well, it's interesting because she has changed so much through the years, and I credit almost all of it with AAC. I mean, I don't want to take credit away from her because she's an amazing,
Yeah.
hardworking, spicy, adorable little kid. And by little, I mean she's like 5'5". She really doesn't look like an 11-year-old. But starting very, very little. Like I said, she was not even 3 yet when I started using this AAC device with her. She's always had access to communication. And although it has changed through the years, in the beginning it started with single buttons, making requests. And then she worked into saying sentences because again, I didn't know better. So I was modeling complete sentences and working on complete sentences and working on this and working on that. And then as I started learning, I started changing things. I started adding more things to the device. I started following her lead on adding every special interest, every book, every little thing, making customization in there so that she really felt like this was hers. And I'd say up until the age of 7, AAC was her only communication. I consider it her first language. I mean, on top of gestures and sounds and things like that. But
Yeah.
that was her clearest form of communication. That was her first language. That was, her authentic form of talking to the world. And then at around 7.5, she started using some intentional vocal words. Her first intentional vocal word was at 7.5. And because she has apraxia and because she's always been non-speaking, I didn't expect that. I'll be honest. Like, I don't ever sit around thinking, like, will my kid do this? Will she do that? Like, I don't do that. So I just assumed we were going to only be using AAC forever. And I was thrilled with it. I mean, we were even adding Spanish in there because
Oh,
why not? She loves languages. We were recording all the things. But then she started having some vocal words and then she started having more vocal words. And so now I consider her to be bilingual, so to speak.
yeah.
AAC is her first language, vocal speech is her second language. Her vocal speech is not that clear, and she is a GLP. So there's a lot of scripting involved. We are currently at stage 3, stage 4. And so we actually went from like full sentences on her AAC device to single words. And then
Oh,
lots
wow.
of I know, like we graduated. Everything's been broken apart and she's doing all the things. And then
Wow.
with her vocal speech too, she has a lot of scripts and then she has a lot of single words as well. But because it's not clear, she uses both. And right now, what's interesting is she prefers vocal speech, which is so hard for me as like this AAC advocate who's like, yes, AAC is the greatest. And then when I see her not wanting to use it, I almost feel bad. I'm like, but don't you want to use your device right now? Like, and I still model it all the time.
Yeah.
But what's really cute is she's great at advocacy. We have always promoted advocacy. We celebrate it. Self advocacy. We love when she tells us no. We think that that's what all kids should be learning first.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
even like it's just very important to us that she knows how to stand up for herself and that she sees that we honor that. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times, like just this morning, for example, I was outside talking to her about breakfast and I brought her device out and we're talking and I modeled something. And then she said, words inside. I'm like, okay,
Words
I'll take your
inside.
words inside. I'm sorry, I'm modeling right now.
She's
My
telling
mistake.
you.
Yeah, she's like, I don't really feel like having any modeling right now. Like we're in vocal speech mode. I'm like, okay.
Oh,
And so I
well,
take them inside and I'm like, great.
it's a new
Thank you for
era.
letting me know. Yeah.
And then, she has that when she needs it, if
which
she
is
can't
which is
find
still
those.
daily. Yeah, and it's all the time. I mean, she often has to repeat herself, which I do not like, but not everyone understands her. So the
Yeah.
fact that she has never had that frustration with communication that
Mm,
so many people explain. They're like, God, I know my child has something to say and they can't say it and it's heartbreaking and they're frustrated. Lily has not lived that life. And
mm,
not even now. It's rare. Occasionally there's something that maybe I don't have in her device, and then we open the keyboard and we work on spelling it together. But
yeah.
she'll say something like to my parents, they're elderly. They don't always understand everything she says. She speaks
Mhm.
quickly, it's not clear. And so she'll say something and they'll kind of just be like, what? And then she gets her device, like, God, grandma, you know. But it's not anger, it's there's no meltdowns involved. It's just all I have another tool in my toolkit.
Yeah.
Let me
It's
use
kind
that.
of like it reminds me of when you're saying someone that's elderly, if you have to repeat yourself slower or louder, she's just
Mhm.
repeating herself with her AAC.
Yes, and she uses it, like, when we go to restaurants to order, because
Mm,
not all servers are tuned in to,
yeah.
um actually, Tiffany from High Functioning Autism once said that Lily has an apraxent, like an apraxia accent, and not everyone's in tune with that, with her little apraxent. So, she
That's a
uses her device for,
super
you know
cute term.
I know, right? I love
Yeah.
it. I think it was a few years ago she said that, and I was like, "I really like that."
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
I want to touch on something you just said too, which was honoring no, honoring a refusal, because I think we feel like a lot of times in the school or maybe as parents, like, we can't. I just asked them to do this. I'm gonna, if I give in and say no, then what's gonna happen? Or if I give in to the no and say,
Mhm.
okay, I'll listen to you. Like, what a novel idea, actually listening to what somebody wants. Um,
Mhm.
I was wearing a shirt yesterday from Serena of Play Spark,
I
and it
love
said,
Serena.
I know, so good. And this shirt is so cute, and it has all these little fishies on it, but it says, non-compliance is self-advocacy. And
Mhm.
I thought that is just such a great way to think about it.
Absolutely, and I agree, and I think I actually ordered a shirt like that from her for Lily, so I'm
Oh,
excited
good.
for her to wear it because we love their shirts. But
Yeah.
and it's true, and honestly, I'm grateful that my husband and I have always taken a path of honoring Lily's communication. This is a parenting style that is different. It's actually I was having this conversation with someone the other day, like, a lot of parents still, if they don't have autistic non-speaking children and they're not trying to promote all sorts of communication, they still say things like, you'll do it because I said so. Or
Mhm.
it doesn't matter that you don't want to do it. You're the child. I'm the adult. I'm in charge. Like they do not honor the advocacy. They don't honor the non-compliance. We always try to do it, with the exception of if it's her health or her well-being or her safety. There are
Yeah.
some things where I'll say, I understand like that you don't want to eat this.
Yeah.
But we need to eat, 5 bites and then you're done. And so we'll figure out how to negotiate when it needs to happen. But on other times, like I might tell her, like, hey, it's time to do something because I don't ask a question unless I'm going to honor her answer. And then there are times I'll tell her it's time to do something and she'll be like, no. Or now she knows 1 minute. Be like, you know what? Okay, 1 minute and then we'll do something. We just agreed.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It doesn't have to be my way or the highway. She's allowed to be a human with an opinion and with,
Yes.
it is valid to respect what she is saying. And that is a very new way of thinking. It's not how I was raised. I know old schoolers struggle with that. And also like sometimes she makes requests because she has all sorts of acronyms, I'm sure, after her name. But like, for example, because she's a GLP and because of other things, a lot of times people talking not to her but around her can
Mm,
drive her bonkers. And
yeah.
so she will say to people, like, we'll be at the dinner table and she'll tell everyone, stop talking. And I know that people don't like it, but I'll say, okay, everyone, let's be quiet for a minute. And they're like,
Yeah.
why do you let her tell us to stop talking? Well, she's already sitting at the table with us, which is hard. She's already eating, and that's not a preferred activity for her. So if we can show some respect for her for doing something hard for her by taking a minute to do something hard for us, which is we're going to do that. We're going to show her that it matters to us that she's more comfortable in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with working with young autistic kids, I, over the years, have felt like kids who have less ability to really explain things
Hmm.
are not honored even more. So, like if a child
Yes.
can explain, like if there's a 4-year-old that can explain why they don't
Hmm.
want to do something, then it by a teacher or whoever it might be honored more than someone that simply says no or pushes something away. I feel like
Agreed.
then we try even harder, like, no, we're doing this because this is my agenda, and we're
Hmm.
not going to take into account what you want to do. So I'm glad things are changing with this.
Yes. Well, and I really hope it is changing for everyone and not just us. But what you said kind of, you hit the nail on the head with something that drives me. It's a hard thing for me to accept. I feel like we hold disabled children to a higher standard than typically developing children. I feel like we have expectations of non-speaking autistic children to behave in certain ways, and we scrutinize everything they do. We analyze everything that they do. We have these weird expectations of them that we don't put on other children, and it doesn't make sense. It is
Absolutely.
not acceptable. And I really want that to continue in a way to where people recognize, this isn't appropriate. We shouldn't be demanding this of this child, or it doesn't matter that they do it this way instead of that way. Let's
I
honor this kid.
Yeah, I have always thought in the classroom, and especially in the elementary, that a lot of times, whether a child's autistic or they're maybe a child labeled EBD, emotional
Mhm.
behavior disorder or disability, those kids that maybe have paraprofessional help, someone's watching them all the time. So they might see every little thing to correct, where other
Mhm.
kids in the classroom aren't being watched all the time and, like you said, scrutinized. And I think that's where sometimes that comes from. Like the person watching, while meaning, must sometimes think like, this is my job to do this, to
Mhm.
correct. So I think a lot of that is like a philosophical shift that I feel is starting to change with the neurodiversity movement, but it will take a while to get there, I think.
As long as it's going in the right direction.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so now with Lily's voice,
Uh-huh.
what do you provide? Because you talked about like Lily's journey
Mhm.
and starting this nonprofit. So what do you provide for families?
Yeah, so and I'll just get into a tiny bit of process too, just to help anyone listening
Yeah.
understand. So Lily's Voice, like I said, is a nonprofit my cousin and I run. We don't have like government backing. We're not affiliated with any schools or speech therapy centers or anything like that. And so we want people who apply to have tried to get devices from someone else first, gone to insurance, gone to school, gone to their speech therapist if they have access to these things. We want them to try.
Mm,
uh, because if there's a way they can get it for free and have someone in person helping them and guiding them, like do that. That is great. But for those who can't get it from school or speech therapist or insurance, who cannot afford it on their own and do what I did, or even those who can, they can come ask me for help. But basically, if you cannot get a device through some other means and you have tried, or if someone said yes, but they're going to make you wait 2 to 3 years or a year, I mean, it's unacceptable, right? Apply at liliesvoice.org. And then first, we do an intro call with them to explain the process. Talk to them about their challenges, make sure that our program is a good fit for them, tell them how it all works. If they agree, because it's a very parent led thing. They are now going to become an expert in this with us. I can't fly around and train everyone in person. I can't set up these devices for them. They are now going to become an expert in their child's communication, which honestly is better for their child anyway.
mhm.
But as soon as they accept that, and if we all agree that this is the best way to move forward, they get on our list. People are not on our list for very long. And once we have the funds, we reach out to them after we've sent them a bunch of information as well. So after the call, we say, okay, now it's time to start thinking about the app that's going to work for your child because we don't choose it. Every child is different. They're going to have different needs. And while some apps will work for the majority of everyone, there are a few differences, and we want the parents to look it up. They know their kid. So we send them
Mhm.
info, we send them a video, we send them accounts to look at, we help them with the research. We say research, let us know if you have questions. But when they're at the top of the list, then I reach out and say, okay, do you still need a device? Because
Yeah,
sometimes people get one through school and they're like, oh, I didn't think this was going to happen, but they
yeah.
gave us one, or my grandma heard I was on your wait list and so she went and paid for it for me. Like
Wow.
things happen. But then if they're like, nope, I still need it, then we confirm which app they need. And then we start training. So before we've ever sent anything, they have to complete a training program. It's not labor intensive. I know I am working with parents here, but it's online. Watch a few videos, read some modules, take a quiz to prove to me that you are paying attention and that you're catching on to the stuff we're telling you. And then when they pass that quiz, that's when we start the order, and
Wow.
they get to pick. They're going to get an iPad, full-sized iPad. We don't do minis anymore because honestly, they don't last long enough. And we want these kids to have robust language. And minis are great for littles, but after like a year, they need, a bigger screen. We want to make sure that they can see all those buttons. We don't want them to start with just a few buttons. And so full-size iPad. We let them choose the case of their choice. We give them 4 options, the color that they want so that the child will like have their favorite color. We
Mhm.
ship everything directly to them. It is their device. They have to get Apple Care on it and prove to us that they got Apple Care. And then we schedule a setup call.
Mm.
So in that setup call, I can't help them do everything because we all know like that takes time. You
Yes.
have to learn the system. You have to not just install it, you have to customize it.
Yep.
And so, but I do this call with them to talk to them about some best practices for setting it up. And then we go through all of the training materials I give them to set it up, which is step by step videos on YouTube. We have different libraries to walk them through how to do it. And then in addition to our libraries, we've linked libraries from the app creators because they obviously know what they're doing. It's just
Mhm.
my videos are geared like parent to parent, do this, do this, do this, versus the
Yeah.
app creator that is sharing every piece of information there is, which is too much for some of these moms who are just trying to figure out what to do. But we talk about those videos and how they're going to use them and what I want them to watch on day one and, all the different things. And then on this additional training page, I show them where, here's the IEP info. You have to get it in your IEP. We talk about their child's
Oh,
situation and their teacher. I've bulleted out all the things they need to request in their IEP. I give them a list of accounts to follow and basically immerse themselves in the world of AAC and to ask questions. And I say, look, these are all amazing speech therapists. Tell them you're a Lily's Voice family if you have a question about something they post. They'll respond to you. We give them information on modeling, including a library to show them how to model. We talk about modeling on this call. And then also what I call proper perspective list, kind of explaining to them how to be respectful of an AAC user. Just everything all wrapped up in one bow on one
yeah.
resource page. We talk about it top to bottom to make sure that this part is not overwhelming to them. And then after that call, and after they've asked any questions they have of me, we purchase the app. We send it to them via their Apple ID. So it's always going to be their app forever. And we
Okay.
even tell them they can use family sharing to download it on everything Apple they own from now until the end of
Oh,
time.
wow.
And then they start the installation process on their own time. They install it, they start customizing, they start teaching their kid.
Wow. Okay. I think a lot of people listening, their jaw is on the ground. That's what I feel like. Holy smokes. Like you thought through everything and you provide so much. I when you were talking about what you provide, I literally got butterflies in my stomach because I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so amazing for kids." And I think on your website I saw kids like 2 years old to 18 years old.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. I
and
wish
you
we could go higher, but, like, we have
yeah,
to have a mission. We have to have a focus. It is 2 to
yeah.
18. But if anyone ever has links they can share to me with what people can do after the age of 18, let me know. I'd be happy to put those on my website for anyone over 18 who still needs a resource. Someone tell me,
Yeah.
please. I don't know what
Yeah.
to do. So please help me.
Well, it's amazing, and I love, starting at age 2 because more and more is coming out now about there are no prerequisites. You don't have
Correct.
to know how to do this, this, and this before you try out an AAC device. The younger the
Hmm.
better, and I think Lily is a great example of that. She was immersed in it from a young age, and like to say she has not many frustrations around communication is a huge testament to what you've done and what you've provided at a young age.
Thank you. Yeah, and honestly, and that's what me not knowing anything. So that's why I created this page and why I'm always adding to it. I
Yeah.
think of what would I have wanted to know back then? What would have made this even better? I
Yeah.
wish I had had access to all these videos and all this knowledge with Lily because I can't even imagine where she would be today if I had actually known anything. Like
Right?
if I had known to start her with a big grid size and to not destroy certain aspects that I ended up recreating. Like, and now I'm very confident in everything I do on
Yeah.
AAC and decisions that I make and the things I add and how I catered to her being a GLP and all the things. Like I'm confident now. But
Yeah.
imagine if I knew what I know now back
Right.
then.
It's
And that's what I'm trying to give these families is of everything I would have loved in a bow. Here you go.
yeah, and you are doing that. It's a nice mix too between the families need to do parts of this on their own, and you're gonna support them and guide them and give them the step by step. But it's not
Hmm.
like someone's gonna hand it to them ready and they don't have to do anything. It's really a collaboration. And
Right.
it will continue to be that in the future too, with as their child gets older and, seeking
Mhm.
out somebody that can help guide them with any changes they need to make as their child gets older. But
Yep, and we're
so
even working on
fantastic.
because I've been the only consultant really for the last 3 years, but I do have a board of amazing, intelligent, wonderful people in the community, and so I'm even working on now, having ways that people can schedule follow-ups with people on
Mhm.
my board because we have different expertise in different areas, and I'm even working on maybe like a quarterly Zoom call where anyone who's a Lily's Voice family can join with us, ask questions, tell us challenges, and that's not to say that people don't have access to us all the time. Everyone has my cell phone number, which is a blessing and a curse. Every single family I've ever dealt with in Lily's Voice and outside of Lily's Voice, which is also hundreds of families, because I don't even think I've told you how many families we've helped yet, but
Oh yeah, yeah. You'll
lots
have to
and lots
share.
and lots of people have my cell phone number and they use it all the time, whether it's a question about an app, whether they're having a problem at school, or if their child goes to ABA and they're like, hey, I don't think this is right. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
people text me scenarios. They ask me to
Wow.
sit in on calls. Sometimes they call me at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Some people think I work for Apple and they want me to help troubleshoot their iPad. But at least they have someone, right? But I'm trying to work on spreading that love across the board members so that we
Yes.
can be more effective for these families, and
Yeah.
so they can hear from someone else. They can't always only hear from me. They got to talk to someone else.
Yeah.
So
And you're
I'm
one
working on it.
person. You're one person. It's hard though. It's
Yes,
hard to,
and I work full time, and I really enjoy my kid, so I don't like taking too much time away from her
yeah.
if I can help it.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing. It's so valuable. Uh, I don't even know how to describe it with words. I just think so highly of you and what you're doing. Where can everybody find you on social media? I know you mentioned the website, but maybe
Yes,
mention the spelling. I'll put it in the show
yeah.
notes. But it's Lily with two L's in the
That's
middle.
right. liliesvoice.org with 2 L's in the middle. That is how you can find us, read more about Lily's Voice, apply online. You can also email us if there's a question, liliesvoice@gmail.com. Both Amy and I, Amy, my co founder, my cousin, who is also the other part of the team of two, we do everything together. We both manage that email box and handle, as much as we can. And then on Instagram, we have a Lily's Voice account. So just at Lily's Voice. Or if you want to see my daughter, my account is a friend for Lilybug, again with 2 L's in the middle. and I respond on both of those accounts.
Awesome. Okay, before we end, you got to tell us, as of right now, how many families you're helping each month
Well,
overall.
I'll tell you total as of yesterday, we have helped 393 families in 3 years.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
yeah, it's a lot more than we ever planned. I'll be honest. We thought that we were going to do like 12 to 24 a year if we were lucky.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if we could somehow get funding, because we are blessed with the funding we get. We don't know how we got so lucky with all the wonderful fundraisers people do to help us. But yeah, that's about one device every 3 days instead of one device every month, like we originally anticipated.
wow.
So it's a lot. And Amy and I are both very busy and we both work full time, but it has to happen.
Yeah,
We are in we are able to help. So we need to help. But my goal with this nonprofit one day is to bring Lilly in, as more than just the spokesmodel, but maybe she can get involved in helping me make some videos or maybe going to conferences someday. So I'm hoping this kind of opens up some doors for her someday as well.
yeah.
Or in a perfect world, my nonprofit wouldn't exist at all because everyone has access.
Has
And
access to a device. Yeah,
that would be the best.
yeah. Where can people donate? Because I think, was it your website that there's a place you can donate?
Yeah. So on our website, we have two donation buttons, one through credit card, one through PayPal. People can also send a check. They can just reach out to me and I'll send them an address. We are linked up on Facebook and Instagram because we're an official 501(c)(3). So people can do those really cool birthday fundraisers or, like where you can add a fundraising button to a post or a story. And then we accept any help all day long. Anyone who wants to make a donation in some fashion, reach out. I would be happy to help you do that. And anyone who wants to do a fundraiser of any kind, again, reach out. I don't really have time to fundraise, and neither does Amy. So we rely on the generosity of others, and so anything we can do to support that is, amazing. We're
Okay, I
here.
will put links in the show notes. Anyone listening, if you wanna you accept any amount, what is the cost of one device? If someone said, "I wanna fund one device,"
We
or
quote an
about?
average. Yeah, we quote an average of 700. So
Okay,
it varies based on the app someone needs and the case that they need, and if they need a key guard or anything like that.
yeah,
But we do say an average of 700. So
okay,
iPads are about 329, cases are about 30, and then the apps range depending on which app the family chooses for their child. So
yeah.
700 is a
Perfect.
good flat number.
Okay, you guys, let's do this. Let's get some more kids funded for AAC devices.
Thank you, thank you,
Well,
thank you.
yes, thank you, Stephanie. I look forward to connecting and collaborating more in the future, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.